Have you ever just stopped and wondered how we all got here? I don't mean just in your town or your country, but everywhere, on every continent. Well, we're about to dive into what is, without a doubt, the single most incredible journey our species has ever taken. This is the story of how a tiny group of humans, starting in one place, eventually populated the entire planet. So, that's the big question, right? How on earth did it happen? How did we go from living in just one part of the world to literally everywhere, from scorching hot deserts to frozen ice fields? It's an absolutely epic story, and that's exactly what we're tackling today. Okay, so our story starts like the story of every single person on Earth on the continent of Africa. We're talking hundreds of thousands of years ago. This was our original home, our starting line. And for a very long time, this was our entire world. Early humans were incredibly skilled. They lived in these small, mobile groups, and they absolutely mastered the art of hunting and gathering. They knew their environment so well that their population just grew, slowly but surely, all within Africa. So, what was the push? What made them leave? Well, the biggest reason was climate change. The planet's weather patterns were shifting like crazy. During these long dry spells, deserts would expand, making food and water super scarce and pushing people to move. But then, during the wet periods, something amazing would happen. These wet periods created what scientists call green corridors. Just picture it, the Sahara, not as a desert, but full of rivers and lush grasslands. These were like temporary highways of life that opened up new paths, creating the perfect opportunity for our ancestors to literally just walk right out of Africa. And with a path now open, our ancestors took their first huge steps outside of their home continent. The journey to populate the entire world was officially on. The first stop was what we now call the Middle East. This spot was a critical crossroads connecting Africa, Europe, and Asia. And here's a mind-blowing fact. Genetic evidence suggests this entire global expansion might have started with a founding group of just a few hundred people. That's it. From that tiny band, groups began to spread eastward, fanning out across the enormous Asian continent in a journey that would take thousands and thousands of years. And let me tell you, this journey was anything but easy. Asia threw enormous challenges at them: unbelievable distances, totally unfamiliar plants and animals, and massive obstacles like the Himalayas. Groups would get separated for centuries, and this isolation meant they all developed their own unique cultures and skills just to survive in their new homes. All right, next up were two of the toughest environments on the whole planet: the freezing cold of Ice Age Europe and the massive open ocean that stood between Asia and Australia. To survive in Europe, humans had to become absolute masters of the cold. We're talking about learning to hunt massive animals, like woolly mammoths, using their sick hides to make warm clothing, finding shelter in deep caves, and this is the big one, mastering fire for warmth and cooking. It was a complete masterclass in adaptation. Okay, so surviving the cold is one thing, but how in the world do you cross an ocean? Even back then, when sea levels were lower, Australia was still a faraway island. How did they possibly make that crossing tens of thousands of years ago with no modern tech? The answer just shows how incredibly ingenious our ancestors were. They built boats. Using simple rafts or maybe dugout canoes, these early explorers pulled off one of the first great sea voyages in human history, a journey that required unbelievable planning, navigation skill, and just pure courage. So, with Africa, Asia, Europe, and Australia all populated, there was only one last corner of the world to reach: the Americas, the final frontier. So how'd they get there? The key is a place that doesn't exist anymore, called Beringia. During the last ice age, so much of the Earth's water was locked up in these giant glaciers that sea levels dropped like crazy. And this uncovered a huge stretch of land connecting what's now Siberia and Alaska, a land bridge. And because of that, they didn't have to sail, they walked. Groups of hunters were just doing what they always did, following massive herds of animals, like bison and mammoth, and they followed them right across this land bridge, stepping from Asia into a brand new, untouched world. Once they got to the Americas, their expansion was just stunningly fast. In fact, some scientists figure it only took a few thousand years for people to spread from the frozen north all the way down to the southern tip of South America. They adapted to every environment you can think of: icy tundras, dense rainforests, high mountains. And just like that, the global journey was complete. I mean, what an incredible story of survival. But it really makes you wonder, what was our secret weapon? What did early humans have that allowed us to adapt and thrive in literally every corner of the planet when so many other species couldn't? Well, it really came down to a powerful toolkit we had. First, our technology, the ability to create amazing stone tools for any purpose you could imagine. Second, language, the power to plan together, cooperate on a hunt, and pass down knowledge to the next generation. And third, our super flexible diet. As omnivores, we could figure out how to eat almost anything we found in a new place.
So, why does all this ancient history really matter to us today? Well, because this isn't just some story about them. It's actually the story of us.
Think about it. From those small bands of travelers, we've grown into one single global species of over 8 billion people. Every city, every town, every single person on this planet is a direct result of that incredible journey. And this, right here, is probably the most important takeaway of all. No matter what we look like, where we live, or what language we speak, every single one of us can trace our ancestry all the way back to that small group of modern humans in Africa. We are all deeply connected. This incredible story of resilience, of curiosity, and of adaptation isn't just something you read in history books. It's our shared inheritance. It's a fundamental part of what makes us human. And it is literally written in our DNA. You know, we have always been a species that moves, that explores, that pushes into the unknown. We've populated an entire planet. So the question for our generation is, where do we go from here? What's our next frontier?